What up, nerds? Welcome back to another super easy workflow tutorial. You're going to be able to get professional results in a very quick and easy way using Serial and Photoshop. And don't worry if you don't have Photoshop. I'm just going to be doing the final touches in Photoshop, but you can definitely stop after we do Serial and you'll be looking just great. So first thing we want to do is open up Serial. Go over here to open up file, and you're going to open up your picture. I've already opened up this image, which is the Pleiades 135mm.tiff. The raw file will be down in the description so that you can download this exact same file and follow along. And of course, we're in linear unstretched mode right now, so what we're going to do is we're going to go over to auto stretch. And that gives us a basic idea of what data is in here and kind of shows us that we have this weird vignetting type gradient around the outside, and we're going to try to get rid of that right off the bat. So the first thing we want to do, go to image processing, down to background extraction, and we're not going to generate an auto grid. We're going to do our own. So let's start right clicking around here and make sure that we get a decent number of samples, but we also want to stay out of any of this faint dust that you can see. We don't want to be counting that as the background, since that's part of the object, and this whole area of space is extremely dusty, so it's going to be a little bit difficult, but we'll do the best that we can. So just make sure that you click all around. It's going to be impossible not to click on any stars in this image because, as you can see, it's just loaded with them. But basically, you want to make sure that you're not clicking on any of these really bright stars or the object itself, of course. So anyway, let's get our samples drawn out here, and we'll be back in just a second. And of course, making sure that you do have a decent number of samples. You don't want to have only a few around there. You want to give it enough points to extrapolate from. So that looks pretty good. So what we're going to do now is just go over here and click Compute Background. And we'll wait for a couple seconds while that goes ahead and extracts the background. And of course, that looks really weird, so what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and apply that, and then we're going to run that one more time and see if we can't get rid of this weird blotch down in the bottom. So let's click on this a few times, click on these areas up here. Really what we want to do is get the background to equalize out so that it doesn't have any of these sharp gradient areas in here. So get these darker areas and some of these reddish areas, and hopefully this second time will look a lot better for us. I'm going to put a bunch of points down here, especially in the transition area. Still trying to avoid any of that dust. Alright, let's give this one a try and see if the second time through will do anything. So compute background once again. Okay, that looks a lot better. So we're going to go ahead and apply that. And that's taken care of. So now we're going to go back to our linear mode. And what we want to do right now is go to color calibration, and we want to go to photometric color calibration. And we type in M45 up here for the Pleiades, find. There we go. Then let's see, we have a focal length of 135 millimeters. This was shot with a Nikon D5300, so the pixel size is 3.75, and then we hit OK. And as you can see in the background there, it is solving the image, and it has applied the color calibration. So we will go ahead and close that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start stretching. All right, we are back. We just had a little bit of a technical difficulty there. So where was I? I had just done the calibration, and the very next thing that we're going to do is go down to star processing. Now, I have set up my serial to point towards StarNet version 2, which is an excellent star removal tool. It's pretty self-explanatory how to get StarNet integrated into serial. It's literally you just copy the URL to or the file path to your StarNet exe, and then you put that in there, and then it's pretty much into your program. But if you don't have that set up yet, or you're having trouble figuring it out, there are videos on YouTube that show you how to integrate StarNet with your serial. But mine is already here, and we're using StarNet version 2, so we're going to go ahead and hit StarNet star removal. We would definitely want to click this, have this generate star mask clicked, and then we go, seeing as how this is a pre-stretched linear image, we're going to click that as well, and we're going to go ahead and hit execute. Now this is actually going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to pause the video, and we'll come back when it's all starless and everything, and we'll take off from there. We are back. As you can see, that took 7 minutes and 18 seconds to do. So right here is our linear version of our starless Pleiades, and now we are finally ready to start stretching this image. So we are going to go over to generalized hyperbolic stretch transformations, or as I like to call it, the magic box. So what we're going to do here, hit this plus button a couple times to magnify, because we need to get to the left side of our data here, and we're just going to click somewhere in the black area to the left of where our data is, and I'll just click right there, and that's going to get our symmetry point. And now we're going to start doing a series of small stretches. I usually do at least 10 of them, but it gives you a lot of control over the background and just basically the quality of the data that you're bringing out and everything. So this is how I do it. I start stretching a little bit, let that preview show up, and you can see a little bit there. So let's just do a little bit more on this one and see what we're working with. Okay, so now you can start to see some things popping out. I'm going to apply that. I'm going to stick with the generalized hyperbolic transform, but now I am going to draw a box over here, and I'm going to click on this eyedropper over for the symmetry point, and that's going to give us our new symmetry point. And now we're going to stretch again. See what we're working with. And we're never going to go too far on these little stretches. Just keep in mind, this is a series of small steps. So give it a little bit more here. All right. You can see our background is starting to lighten up too. So we're going to hit apply there. Now we're going to go up to where it says generalized hyperbolic transform. We're going to click that down to a linear stretch, which is the black point. And keeping an eye on our histogram over here, we're going to bring that just down to about there. We're never gonna bring our histogram past where the black point hits the bottom there. So, but that's going to help us keep control of our background while we are stretching everything else out. So keep it in mind, every time you do one of these, you have to hit apply. So that's applied. Now we're going to go back to generalized hyperbolic stretch. I'm going to draw a box over the Pleiades themselves and hit the eyedropper for our symmetry point. I hate having that box there, so I'm just going to click on the screen to get rid of that. And now we're going to do another stretch. And you notice that our data spike is starting to get wider as we do this, because we're actually stretching the data and bringing it into the visible. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And as you can see in our preview over here, we're starting to see some soft dust details pop out and everything. So, but our background keeps lightening up every time we do this. So we're going to go back to the linear stretch, and we're going to lower that black point again. But keep it in mind, always give yourself a little bit of leeway here so that you don't cut off any data. Apply that, and you see over here our background goes back to being dark. Going to go back over here to the generalized hyperbolic stretch, and like I say, I do this about 10 to 20 times on certain images. It just depends. It could be less or more depending on your personal preference, but like I said, it's going to be a small series of baby steps. We're never going to go large on anything really, because that's when you start blowing out data, and we definitely don't want that to happen. So it's just part of the game that this part takes a little while, but for me, I really like seeing the fine details start to appear from a completely black image. It's just one of the things that I really like about processing. So back to linear stretch, bring that black point back down, about there. Just notice our background is being controlled quite nicely this way. Apply. Gonna flip back over to our generalized. Let's see, let's go for about an area like this, where we're not getting anything too bright, but we're getting some good dust in there, and we want that to be our symmetry point. So click on the eyedropper. And like I said, I hate having that box there, so just click on the screen somewhere to get rid of it. And now stretch factor, I'm gonna give it another stretch. And now we're really starting to see some dust details pop out. So I'm going to stretch this just a little bit more in this step just to see what's going on here. Okay, now we're starting to get light again, so we're going to go ahead and apply that. Going to go back to our black point shift and drop that back down to about there again. And you see our dust is staying, but our background continually gets darker again. So that's why we're doing that. We're controlling the background. We're keeping it from getting blown out while we're bringing out all that nice dust. So that's applied. We go back to our generalized, and we're almost done here. I know this part takes a while, but it's just part of the processing, you know, and it's definitely not hard to do. And of course, I forgot to set a symmetry point on this one, so just click reset, and it only resets the stretch that you're on. So for now, for this one, I believe I would want to highlight some of this dust over here. Symmetry point. Now let's give that a good stretch and see what we're working with. And now we're really starting to get somewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. I'm going to go back over to the black point shift and darken our background again. And we're almost done stretching. So it's not that bad. It just does take a little while, but this is how I do it to control everything. So all right, let's go back to our generalized. We're going to stretch this like maybe just a couple more times. And we'll leave the symmetry point where it's at. So go ahead and sample that again. And you notice our histogram here is really getting spread out now, because we're really starting to bring all that data into the visible spectrum so that we can see it. So let's give ourselves a good stretch there and see what we're working with. Okay, it's really looking good. We're going to do one more stretch after this, I think, and we'll be done. So apply that. Go back to our black point shift. We are going to lower that down again. Maybe just a little bit more. Okay, apply that. And now I think one more little stretch, and I think we're gonna be done with what we're doing here. So go back to generalized. Let's just do an area like this, and of course we're avoiding the really bright areas where the stars are there. Go ahead and click the eyedropper symmetry point. Now we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a stretch here. A little bit more. Okay. That's looking pretty kick-ass. So apply that, and we will do one more black point shift after this, just to bring the background down a little bit more and give it a little bit more contrast too. So let's see what that looks like. Bring that down a little tiny bit. There we go. And that's just about perfect. So got that. We're going to apply it. Now we can close that. And what we want to do now, we're going to go over to imaging processing, go down to histogram transformation. And now we're going to hit this little gear over here, which is basically your auto stretch. We're just going to auto stretch it and see what Serial's auto stretch does with what we've already brought out. Okay, looks pretty good. I'm going to make that smaller, and then we're going to mess around with our sliders manually a little bit here because it is a little bright. So we're going to take this middle one here, grab it, bring it towards the right a little bit, and you notice how it's starting to get a little bit darker. So we're just doing little teeny movements here, and that's really bringing out the highlights of this dusty areas and stuff. So let's bring it down a little bit more. Maybe bring that one down and bring that one back up a little bit more. Okay, that looks pretty dang good. So hit apply, and you can close that. So what we need to do next is we're going to save this image, and we're going to go right over here to this down arrow, hit that. We're just going to save it in the same picture as everything else. So I'm going to put Starless Pleiades 135 mm, and I'm just going to put 1 after it because I already have another version of this in here. I don't want to mix them up. So save, and we'll just save that as 32. Okay, so there's that. Now what we're going to do, back to imaging processing. Go back to star processing. We're going to do star recomposition, and this is like the part where Serial and StarNet are like super awesome, and this is where like you really get your final image to look good. So star recomposition. Of course, you go up here to where it says none, and we're down into pictures, and we are looking for our Starless Pleiades 135 mm-1, and that's the one that we want. So that would be right here. We're going to open that up for our background picture, and there is the image we just got done working on. Now you go over to the other side for the star histogram. We will look for the one that says star mask Pleiades 135 mm, and open that. All right, so now the stars are in there. You can barely see them and everything, but it's starting to look really cool. So we're going to have to stretch these stars a little bit. You can find, I'm not going to bother picking a symmetry point at the moment. So I'm just going to give them a little stretch to bring out these stars a little bit and see where we're sitting at. Okay, starting to look good. You can see very faintly that your stars are, like this one over here, is orange like it should be. None of the stars are blown out. Their colors are preserved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a star over here. I'm going to draw a little box around it, and I'm going to click the eyedropper over here because that's going to be our symmetry point. So now we're going to stretch these stars a little bit more. All right, as soon as that computes, then we'll see where we're sitting at. Okay, let's give them a big stretch just to see what happens. Okay, maybe our symmetry point is not the greatest. Let's go down here for a symmetry point. Now our stars are starting to really pop out good, so let's bring that down a little bit. And this part is all going to be personal preference. I like to stretch them until they start to look natural, but they don't blow out, and they're still pinpoint sharp, which right here is pretty dang good. So I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. And apply. And we can close this. So now we pretty much have our completely stretched Pleiades image, and from here you could go back and do another background extraction in here or two or whatever and try to even out some of these colors, or you could just leave it. It looks pretty dang good. There's a ton of dust there. Everything is pretty contrasty and nice looking, but at this point I am going to save it, and I will be saving it as a TIFF file. So go down here, click TIFF file. I don't want it to be named that. I'm just going to be naming it YouTube TIFF.TIFF, and we will save it in. We'll just save it in our pictures here, and go ahead and save. We're going to save it as a 16-bit unsigned integer because Photoshop will be able to open that up. And this is where we're going to switch over to Photoshop. So we'll go ahead and exit out of Serial. Bring up our old Photoshop here. File, open, pictures, and we are going to go to YouTube TIFF. We'll open that up. All right, and here we are. So I always zoom to fit on screen. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to RC Astro's Gradient Exterminator, and I'm going to run that to control some of these colors and stuff that we got going on. That should help quite a bit. All right, not as much as I thought, but it still does look better. Go up to Filter, go down to Camera Raw. And this is where I do like the final tweaks. So we can look at our histogram up here. We see that we got a lot of space on the dark side of the histogram, so we can take these and drop these blacks. And we don't want to drop them too much, but just enough to where that dust is really starting to pop out. And then we're going to give it a little bit of contrast. I usually like to go down to the color mixer at this point. And this is where you bring out the natural colors of the image. You go down to, make sure you're in saturation, go to blue. If you crank it all the way up, you can see where the blue is coming out of the image. Or you can go all the way down and see where it also is, but in the inverse, of course. So I like to take it, just go up a little bit. You don't want it to look fake and painty and everything like this, but you just want to subtly enhance the natural color of what you already have. And that looks pretty dang good right there. So go there, and you see you got some of those orange stars. If you bring them up, they become really gross and orange looking, but just bump them up a little bit just to preserve those colors. And then we'll go back to basic. We'll go down to vibrance, and we'll bring that up just a little bit, maybe 5. And the saturation we will bring up to about 5 also. And then we hit OK. And there we have it. That is pretty much our finished Pleiades image, and our new upgraded workflow for now until Serial updates again. But when they do, I'll be back again to show you guys another super easy tutorial on how to get professional looking results in a not difficult way. So thanks for watching, and take it easy.